Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Erick Rosa versus Kyosuke Takami fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon as well. This is another Patreon requested video alongside with the other two world title fights on this card, so it's going to be early released onto the Patreon, then onto the YouTube closer onto fight week. And so like I say, if you want to join the Patreon, it really does support the channel, and you can request any sort of combat relating sports videos for me to do, and I'll try my best to do them for you guys. And so like I say, thank you very much for all the members we have gotten so far. But like I say, this is for the WBA World Light Flyweight title, and it's Erick Rosa's first defense. He's somebody who has been progressed very quickly so far through the pro ranks, and I mean, he's had a few ups and downs. I mean, he's a former world champion already. He's already a two-weight world champion. In when he was at minimum weight, he was a WBA world champion, but he never really had the most difficult matchups there, and so far he hasn't really had the toughest of matchups in the professional game. But there's no surprise that he has been moved very quickly, and that's just because of how big his amateur career was. He had over 350 fights in his amateur career, and I feel like he only lost like 4 or 5 out of the amount of which he had. So again, that's crazy numbers and really impressive. So like I say, it's very much not a surprise to see that he's been moved very quickly. And I mean, he represented his country as well in the amateurs as well, and so yeah, like I say, he's got that pedigree there and that experience there, when you argue that perhaps he hasn't had that level of professional experience. Of course, like I say, he's had a few tough fights, and he beat Vic Saluda in 2021 for his WBA World minimum weight title, and then he was having frustrations getting his matchup against knockout CP Freshmart, and that just didn't really end up happening, so he had a bit of time out. Then he's come back into the light flyweight division, and he's been able to go on to become a world champion, and he beat Niada Aguirre to become a world champion, and that was in his home country, and he seemingly dominated a bit. The judges had it quite clear. Perhaps it was a bit of a closer fight in my view, but he still was able to win. I mean, he's had a few tough, rocky moments in his career. He did get dropped in 2021 against Vilka, and seemed to have frustrations at times in that fight as well. And so he's not had it completely smooth sailing so far throughout his career, but he's gotten himself in this position, a two-weight world champion already, and it's really impressive, and I don't feel like he's been given that credit so far of what he actually has achieved. He's nicknamed the mini PacMan, which is an interesting nickname. I quite like that. I don't often talk about nicknames because I don't feel like they actually mean a tremendous amount, but you can tell that he does idolize Manny Pacquiao. Does he fight particularly like him? He doesn't have a tremendous amount of power. I suppose Pac-Man never really had a tremendous amount of power, but he does move at times a bit like him. So he's a southpaw himself, and so he is a tricky fighter himself. So again, maybe he does live up to that nickname a little bit. But he's fighting for the first time out of his home country of the Dominican Republic in this fight, and he's taking on Takami, who himself, he's been moved quickly, and he's got a great knockout resume, and he's coming off the best win of his career by beating Toshiki Kawamitsu for the Japanese Boxing Commission light flyweight title. And he's got some shoes to fit in. I mean, he's, like I say, really putting out a good resume with great amount of stoppages. I think he's 9-0 with 7 KOs, and he's kind of being compared to Teraji, and people are saying that perhaps he has the capabilities to be the next Teraji. I really like him as a fighter, and I feel like, again, he's a very underrated name, and I think could definitely go on to achieve good things. Perhaps, is he too soon having this fight? I'm not entirely sure. Will the amateur experience of Rosa play perhaps a little bit too much and cause him problems? We'll have to wait and see, but it is a very good matchup, I believe this is, and I feel like it's definitely an underrated matchup on this card. For Rosa, to speak more about him as a fighter, he's got fast hands, he's got fast feet, and he does pick his shots typically quite well. When he uses his slipping and his head movement, it can be really good and it can look really nice. And he can, again, at the same time, showcase good lateral movement. And he showcases that well in the earlier parts of fights. He's got solid body work and, he's able to land his shots quite well. He's composed, which is something again which I think does come with his amateur pedigree. The fact that he is able to be composed even when the fights are getting tough for him. He was rocked in that last fight as well, and he was able to again compose himself and be able to go on to get the win. He can fight on that front foot or the back foot, and for the most part he is relatively accurate. He can match quite a high pace, and I mean his opponent was setting quite a high pace. Maybe he was trading a little bit too much Rosa, but he was still able to match the pace and be able to continually have a high output into later rounds. His his shape and his sharpness is definitely there. It's just something in which I feel like needs to progress a little bit more into the later rounds. For me, I would just like to see him be able to, like I say, keep that shape, keep that sharpness about him going into the later rounds. Negatives about him, I think he can stay in range a bit too long, and I think he doesn't really mix up his body to headshots as well as what he could do. If he started doing that, he could have much more success and perhaps be able to get a few more fighters out of there. He, like I say, in general, doesn't really pair up his shots, and he does stand quite tall, which is something in which definitely can result alongside with him, staying in range. It can mean that he can get caught, and that's when he can get rocked. I mean, I think he admires his work a bit too much, and he was getting caught with the uppercut last time out quite a lot, especially when he was in close. I think he can forget his defense as well when he's in close, and he doesn't really bring his shots back the best. I don't think he's particularly physical, which Takami isn't really, so I don't know if he's going to have to worry too much about that. But again, if he's facing top world class challengers, perhaps tough Mexican world class challengers, then he might struggle with the physicality a bit. He can be outthrown at times as well, and he does, like I say, lose his shape going on later into the fight. To speak more about Takami as a fighter, again, these characteristics that I'm seeing from him and Teraji, they definitely are there. You can tell that he studied a lot of Teraji, and I mean, I don't blame him. Teraji is an excellent fighter. He's the main event. He's a pound for pound star at the moment, and Takami's got them rangy limbs, but he can also shorten up his shots really well, so he can fight at a bit of a distance where he's just offloading punches, and he can also shorten up his shots. He punishes you when you're on the ropes, which similarly, in the way that Teraji does, he can punish you and get you out of there on the ropes, and he hasn't got incredible power, but like I say, it's enough to just be able to damage with the fast hands as well. He does carry a decent level of power, and he can, go and find the body shots quite nicely with the good accuracy in which he does have. He pulls back to dodge counters quite well, so he's, again, much more disciplined in close, and I feel like Rosa is. He has a high output himself. He's quite measured and quite controlled at the same time as well. So yes, he has this high output, but again, it's all quite measured, and he can find his range really well. He can fight at a mid or an in close range, and he lands well to the body, and he's quite tidy when he wants to be as a boxer. He can be quite a tidy, clean boxer, like I say, when he wants to be. He circles well and can be on the front foot or the back foot and have a good level of success. Negatives about him, I think he does have quite a weak guard, again, similarly to that of a Teraji, and he's not really got much use for his jab, because the way that he throws his jab, it is just kind of flung out there and wasted a little bit. I don't feel like he often, sets that up enough. His balancing close can be a bit poor because he can often square up and he can, be stumbling back a bit there. His physicality is also quite weak as well. So, with him being able to sometimes accept being on the back foot, Rosa might be able to come forwards and have bits of success and be able to, use that early sharpness to be able to catch him out with a few shots and be able to have, like I say, his own success off of that. He can be caught with overhands, and his opponents quite often don't respect him, because if he is just flicking out a bit of a wasteful jab, it can result in, like I say, him not gaining the respect of the opponents. Who do I think is going to win? I think that Kyosuke Takami is going to be able to win via unanimous decision. I think it is going to be a standout performance for Takami, where he is going to be able to perhaps, have to deal with something a little bit new when he's facing Rosa in the first few rounds. But as Rosa gets a bit too, comfortable, and he starts admiring his work and he doesn't really focus as much as what he maybe should be, I think Takami is going to, take the most out of that. Again, I think even when he is fighting in close, he is going to be the better fighter. He is going to be landing more significant shots. He's going to be more defensively smart, just like that of what a Teraji can be at times, and inevitably that's just going to result in him getting a unanimous decision win. I don't think he's going to be able to stop him, but again, that is still a great win for his career and him becoming a world champion, and kind of to an extent upsetting the odds by beating the world champion in his first defense. But in my opinion, I just think that Takami is very underrated, and as a fighter, then who we can go on to fight next. I mean, realistically, the light flyweight division isn't in the best of positions at the moment. It's not full with that many great kind of stand-up names. I mean, the minimum weight division has got, of course, it's got Kalaza, who's a great name, and he's really selling that minimum weight division at the moment. And then the flyweight division's got, the likes of the Teraji and a Yabuki and Olasquaga. So, like I say, some really good names there. But with Teraji leaving the light flyweight division, it did kind of leave the division a bit open and a bit, without a standout name. I mean, Iwata went on to fight Santiago and lost, so perhaps Iwata, who's still ranked well, could go on to fight Takami. If not, Cordova possibly could go on to fight him, but I think Cordova is actually got a matchup in the flyweight division, so again, just quite a poor division. I mean, they've got Simsri and Pradabsri as world champions as well, so maybe he could go straight into a fight against Simsri just due to the lack of options available, but we'll have to wait and see. It wouldn't surprise me if perhaps there's another Filipino fighter or another, Japanese fighter coming through that can step in to fight somebody like a Takami for a first defense, because I feel like he just can't go straight into fight against another world champion at this point in his career, because he needs to, he's really good and he's looking really good, but he's not quite ready for the other unification fights just yet, in my opinion. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.